from the Newswires, powered by Kangaroo Fern Media Lab.
Welcome to another episode of Newswires from redwires.au. So for today's topic, we're talking about the UNESCO report saying the Great Barrier Reef is in recommendation that's in danger. So for this topic, we're talking to Dr. John Day. So he is the adjunct and senior research fellow of ARC Center of Excellence for Coral Relief Studies on James Cook University. John has 39 years of professional experience as protected area planner and manager, 28 years of which were involved in the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. Dr. John Day, welcome to From the Newswires.
Thank you very much.
So recently you wrote an article. So can you tell us the background of, if you know, the story of this report that UNESCO just recently announced?
Well, basically, the report was written by a mission, what they call a reactive monitoring mission, that was invited to come to visit the Great Barrier Reef by the Australian government. And the reason they were invited is because the World Heritage Committee passed a decision which effectively said to the Australian government, we'd like you to invite this mission. The mission is made up of one representative of the UNESCO and another from the advisory group, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN. So those two people came out on the mission at the request of Australia, but on the advice of the World Heritage Committee, and their aims were to check out the situation with the Great Barrier Reef. As you're probably aware, the Great Barrier Reef has been in the international spotlight for a number of years, mainly because of the threats to the values for which it was declared a World Heritage Area back in 1981.
Yeah. So what happened now if they saying it's in danger, the recommendation? So what happened to you say it's a World Heritage?
Yes. The Great Barrier Reef was declared World Heritage because of its outstanding universal value. In other words, it's internationally recognised as being on the World Heritage list because of the incredible, it's the biggest coral reef in the world. But it's also been under a lot of threat, and the Australian government's own reports have shown this. The Australian government puts out a 5-yearly report called the Outlook Report, and the first Outlook Report in 2009 talked about the Great Barrier Reef being in poor condition and declining. The following 5-year report in 2014 also said it was still in poor condition and declining. And then the 2019 report, the most recent one, came out and said it had gone to very poor. So, the Australian government's own reports, and these are based on lots of scientific information and evidence, their own reports indicate that there are problems facing the Great Barrier Reef. UNESCO has also been talking about these issues for a long time. Climate change is the number one issue, and that is of major concern. But it's more than that. It's water quality impacting the reefs. It's unsustainable fishing. It's coastal developments that are having adverse impacts. Shipping. There's a whole range of threats and pressures on the reef, and these are covered in both the government's Outlook Report, but also were reassessed and re-examined by the mission when they came out. And that's the result of the report we've just seen. But I want to stress the mission report, even though the recommendation is in danger, this has happened in the past. There have been similar calls for in danger listing back in 2012, 13, 14 and 17. So this has happened in the past. And basically the Australian government has lobbied very hard to stop the Great Barrier Reef being listed on the in danger list. And there are various reasons they do that. It's hard when the World Heritage Committee has to make a decision, because clearly the Great Barrier Reef is well resourced compared to many other World Heritage properties, but equally it's clear that the values of the World Heritage property are being impacted. So the World Heritage in danger list is designed not as a punishment, It's there as a call to the international community to recognise that this World Heritage property is under threat and requires major action. So it puts a spotlight on the Great Barrier Reef and therefore hopefully leads to both national and global actions to better protect the reef, particularly from climate change.
So yeah, because this is the second time they doing that for listed for that. So on the UN mission, what is their recommended um, area of key area to improve on this Great Barrier Reef?
Well, the report from the mission had, I think, 22 recommendations. So they were very um, broad in their recommendations. But the major ones were talking about water quality, things that can be done by the Australian government to improve the water entering the Great Barrier Reef, to improve the quality and allow it to build resilience. So I think there were 10 high priority recommendations, mainly about water quality, but also it did talk about the need for addressing other threats, including, as I said, the unsustainable fishing and the importance of um, considering climate change. So this is the climate change one is not only for the Australian government, it's also recognition that the global community has to do things. But Australia is a resource-rich country, and we can do more than we are currently doing to address the issues of global emissions and therefore climate change. But the main recommendations in the mission report were about things like water quality and fishing that the Australian government can definitely do more to address.
Thank you for that, Dr. John. So the Australian government right now, they're trying to um, against on the endangered recommendation, saying they do already a lot of things. They said they already have billion what's that budget for that. What do you think about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. The Australian government is spending large amounts of money to address some of these issues, but their own monitoring is showing that they're not reaching the targets that they set themselves. So I think there are a number of lessons out of this. One, the money is perhaps not being spent as effectively as it could, but we're also aware that the government attitude is not one of looking at enforcement. In other words, they have regulations in a whole range of areas, regulations about vegetation clearing, regulations around water quality, regulations around fishing. And those regulations need to have proper compliance to be effective. And what we're seeing is that we're not seeing that level of compliance we need. So there are a number of things we need to do. We need to scale up our efforts to address the concerns, but also improve compliance. As I said, unless you've got effective compliance, then you're not going to, regulations mean very little.
Thank you for that. So what's next after this?
So effectively what happens is this mission report is one of the many inputs that goes into the World Heritage Committee when the item is discussed and hopefully resolved or addressed by the World Heritage Committee. But this has come up before to the World Heritage Committee with a similar draft decision saying the Great Barrier Reef should be listed in danger. And in past years, we've seen a huge amount of lobbying by the Australian government, and that has been successful in staving off the fact that the World Heritage Committee was going to make a decision. So this is not the first time such a recommendation has appeared before the committee. It'll be interesting to see how it's addressed by the committee. There are many people who think climate change is such a global issue that no one property or one country should be penalised for climate change. But the reality is it's more than just climate change for the Great Barrier Reef. It's water quality, it's unsustainable fishing, it's a whole range of issues. But we also know that climate change is the number one. So we need to work on many, many fronts, and it'll be up to the World Heritage Committee to make a decision whether they proceed with the recommendation for endangered listing or not. But I also want to say that an endangered listing is not going to fix the problem. It'll certainly bring a greater international spotlight on the problem, on the issue, or issues, I should say, the many issues. But it's up to the Australian government to show leadership and ensure that they're addressing these issues in an effective way. So the point you made earlier, there's lots of money being put towards the Great Barrier Reef. In fact, compared to many other World Heritage areas, it's huge amounts of money. But what we're not seeing is the threat being reduced the way that the government has set their own targets, particularly in the case of water quality, and we're not seeing the level of, as I said before, compliance with the regulations. So there are a number of things that can be done, should be done, and need to be done. Well, we're not going to see a Great Barrier Reef in the future, which is really sad. I mean, it won't disappear overnight, but future generations are going to say, why didn't we take the efforts that we knew we had to take and save the Great Barrier Reef, because it is a global iconic area.
Thank you so much, Dr. John Day from James Cook University. And that's it for today. For Newswires, this is Miko Santos. See you.